My name is Betty Hayes, and I am 62 years old. Until a few months ago, I believed I had endured every kind of heartbreak life could offer. I had built a remarkably successful career in a fiercely competitive industry, navigated the complexities of marriage with grace, and grieved the devastating, soul-crushing loss of my beloved husband, Arthur, 4 years prior. I had faced down ruthless competitors in the boardroom, weathered economic downturns that shattered lesser firms, and had always emerged standing. I truly thought I was resilient, a woman who had seen it all, processed it, and could handle anything life threw my way. I was wrong. The deepest cut, the most profound betrayal, it turned out, would come not from professional setbacks or the inevitable sorrows of aging, but from the casual cruelty of my own daughter, Clara, delivered with chilling detachment over a mundane phone call about my cherished grandson's birthday party. It was a Tuesday afternoon, specifically at 2:17 p.m. on a sweltering July day in Phoenix, Arizona. I remember the exact time with crystalline clarity because I was sitting at my kitchen table, the very same custom-designed granite island where Arthur and I used to share our morning coffee and discuss our dreams. That afternoon, my hands, usually so steady, were meticulously wrapping Leo's birthday present. It wasn't just a gift, it was the gift, one I had poured months of planning and emotional energy into, imagining the sheer, unadulterated delight on my precious grandson's 5-year-old face. The wrapping paper was adorned with tiny, brightly colored sailboats. Leo, at his tender age, was utterly obsessed with anything that floated, a passion he had inherited, or perhaps instinctively adopted, from his late grandfather, Arthur, who had been an avid sailor. My heart, against my better judgment, swelled with an almost childlike anticipation for the joy I hoped to witness. My phone buzzed, vibrating insistently across the polished granite countertop. It was Clara. My pulse quickened, a familiar blend of hope and apprehension. Even before I answered, a subtle chill seemed to seep into the air, a premonition I had learned to dread. "Hi, Mom." Her voice sounded distant, almost clinical, utterly devoid of the warmth I yearned for, a coldness that instantly made my stomach clench. "Clara, honey, I was just wrapping Leo's gift." I practically chirped, my words tumbling out, eager, brimming with the excitement only a grandmother can feel when anticipating a grandchild's happiness. "You won't believe what I found for him. There's this incredible vintage miniature sailboat model, perfectly crafted, a real collector's item, and I even managed to find a custom display case for it. I thought it would be perfect for his room, a reminder of his grandpa Arthur and his love for the sea." "Mom, stop!" The sharpness in her voice, sudden and unyielding, cut through my excited chatter like a finely honed blade. The joyous bubble of anticipation in my chest burst, deflating instantly. The warmth drained from the sun-drenched kitchen, leaving behind an unnatural, icy chill despite the scorching desert heat outside. I sat down abruptly, the roll of sailboat-patterned ribbon falling from my suddenly trembling hands, scattering across the floor like discarded hopes. "What about it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, a thin thread of fear weaving its way into my throat. "I'll be there Saturday at 2, just like we planned, remember? I even took the whole day off work. I canceled my client consultation, postponed my volunteer shift at the art museum, cleared my entire calendar. At 62, I was technically retired, having sold my highly successful interior design firm, Betty Hayes Interiors, a few years back for a significant sum. But I still consulted occasionally, mostly out of a genuine love for the craft and a desire to keep my mind sharp, to maintain a connection to the professional world that had defined so much of my identity. Yet, for Leo's birthday, I had cleared my schedule entirely, prioritizing his happiness above all else, as I always did. "That's the thing, Mom," Clara continued, her voice flat, devoid of emotion, like she was reading from a script. "David and we've decided to have a very small, intimate gathering for Leo. You know, just immediate family. We only want close family there." There was a pause, heavy and deliberate, each beat of silence amplifying the crushing weight of her words. And then, the final, devastating blow. "Don't come." The words hung in the air, suspended between us like a poisoned cloud, each syllable a tiny, venomous dart piercing my heart. Close family. Don't come. Was I not close family? Was I not family at all? The question echoed in the sudden, deafening silence of my immaculate kitchen, reverberating through my very bones. My hands, still clutching the ribbon, started to tremble uncontrollably, a physical manifestation of the emotional earthquake shaking my world. My carefully constructed composure, a shield I had honed over a lifetime, crumbled into dust. My story isn't just about a grandmother being excluded from a birthday party. It's about a woman who spent decades trying desperately to buy love, to purchase validation, to secure a permanent, irrefutable place at a family table that seemed to constantly push her away. It's about the brutal, agonizing realization that true family connection, genuine affection, and unwavering respect are never for sale. It's about the devastating epiphany that sometimes the greatest act of love, the most profound act of self-preservation, is to stop giving, to stop enabling, and to start demanding the basic dignity and respect you deserve. My early life was a complex tapestry woven with threads of raw ambition, a fierce desire for self-reliance, and a deep-seated, persistent insecurity. I grew up in a bustling, middle-class suburb of Detroit, the youngest of 3 children. My parents, practical, hard-working, and perpetually burdened by the demands of a large family, often seemed overwhelmed. My older siblings, always more boisterous, more demanding, and more overtly charismatic, naturally commanded most of their attention. From a tender age, I learned, subconsciously perhaps, that to be seen, to be acknowledged, to earn even a fleeting moment of their attention, I often had to do something, to provide something, to somehow make myself indispensable or undeniably impressive. I excelled in school with relentless dedication, won local art competitions with painstaking effort, and meticulously kept my room spotless, all in a quiet, unspoken bid for recognition, for a glance, a word of praise, a sign that I mattered. I was the good girl, the responsible one, the reliable one, but I always felt like an afterthought, constantly striving, constantly trying to earn a love that, as Arthur would later teach me, should have been freely given. This deep-seated insecurity, this yearning for validation, followed me into adulthood, even as I built a remarkably successful career that should have quelled any doubts about my worth. After graduating with honors from a prestigious design school, I plunged headfirst into the cutthroat world of entrepreneurship, determined to forge my own path. I started my own interior design firm, Betty Hayes Interiors. It began as a tiny venture, a solitary operation run out of a spare bedroom in my first cramped apartment, fueled by sheer grit, boundless ambition, and an almost obsessive attention to aesthetic detail. My designs were not just functional, they were known for their sophisticated elegance, their innovative functionality, and their timeless appeal, a blend of classic beauty and modern practicality that few could match. I worked tirelessly, often pulling all-nighters fueled by strong coffee and sheer determination, transforming mundane, uninspired spaces into works of art, breathing life into sterile environments. My firm quickly thrived, attracting an exclusive clientele of high-profile individuals and Fortune 500 companies. We earned national recognition, accumulating prestigious awards and glowing features in design magazines. Financially, I became more than comfortable. I was, by any measure, wealthy, a self-made success story. But beneath the polished, confident exterior, that familiar insecurity lingered, a quiet, persistent hum beneath the surface of my impressive achievements, a fear that if I stopped achieving, if I stopped providing, I would become invisible once more. It was during my firm's nascent, challenging years that I met Arthur. He was a brilliant, kind-hearted, and incredibly grounded structural engineer I collaborated with on a major commercial development project, a sprawling corporate campus that required both my aesthetic vision and his engineering prowess. Arthur was unlike anyone I had ever met. He saw through my polished facade, past the trophies and accolades, to the sensitive, yearning woman beneath. He loved me fiercely, unequivocally, for who I was, not for what I achieved or what I could provide. He was my anchor, my confidant, my unwavering pillar of support, the one person who made me feel truly seen, truly cherished, and unconditionally loved, simply for being Betty. With Arthur, I finally felt whole, cherished, and utterly secure. He possessed a quiet wisdom, a profound understanding of human nature, and he often gently cautioned me about my ingrained tendency to overgive, especially to family. "Betty," he'd say, holding my hand firmly, his eyes warm and knowing love isn't a transaction. It's not something you can earn with gifts or grand gestures. It just is. And the moment you start treating it like a currency, you devalue it, and you devalue yourself. His words were a soothing balm to my restless soul, a truth I knew intellectually, though the deeper, more painful lesson was one I would, tragically, have to relearn the hard way, long after he was gone. Our daughter, Clara, was born 7 years into our marriage, a joyful, unexpected gift that completed our family. She was a beautiful, vivacious child, quick-witted and charming, with a mischievous twinkle in her eyes. We adored her, perhaps too much, showering her with affection and opportunity. As an only child, Clara quickly became the undisputed center of our universe. We wanted to give her everything we possibly could, to ensure she never felt the subtle neglect or the need to earn affection that I had experienced in my own childhood. Arthur, with his grounded wisdom, tried his best to balance my occasional overindulgence, gently reminding me to foster independence, resilience, and a strong sense of self-worth in Clara. He instilled in her a love for nature, for simple pleasures, and the importance of genuine human connection over material possessions. But after his sudden, unexpected death from a heart attack, when the raw, agonizing grief of his absence tore a gaping hole in my life, my deeply ingrained tendency to give intensified exponentially. It became a desperate, almost subconscious attempt to fill that immense void, to maintain a connection, to feel useful and loved, to somehow compensate for the terrible loss we had all endured. Clara, now 38, had grown into a sharp, undeniably ambitious woman, a successful marketing executive at a high-profile firm. She possessed an impressive drive and a keen business acumen, but her ambition, sadly, often veered into materialism, and her priorities increasingly revolved around appearances, social status, and accumulating wealth. This tendency, unfortunately, was amplified and exacerbated by her husband, David. David, 40, was a real estate developer, outwardly charismatic, impeccably dressed, and possessing a silver tongue that could charm anyone. But beneath that polished, superficial veneer, he was a man driven by a relentless, almost predatory pursuit of wealth, and an almost parasitic reliance on others' resources, particularly mine. He was masterfully charming to me, always praising my unwavering generosity, subtly hinting at Clara's and his dire needs for capital for their next big venture, and expertly manipulating my deep-seated desire to be loved and included. He saw my hard-earned wealth not as a testament to my tireless work and Arthur's legacy, but as a limitless resource to be tapped, a never-ending well of financial support for their increasingly extravagant lifestyle. After Arthur passed away, the family dynamic shifted profoundly, irrevocably. The void he left was immense, and my grief was a heavy, suffocating cloak that isolated me further. Clara, in her own way, was grieving too, but she and David soon began to distance themselves, becoming increasingly focused on their own lives, their own ambitions, their own social climb. My heartfelt attempts to connect, to process my profound grief with them, to simply share memories of Arthur, were met with polite deflection, busy excuses, or swift changes of subject. I felt a growing, chilling isolation, an echo of my childhood insecurity, amplified by the immense loneliness of widowhood. Desperate to maintain a connection, particularly with Leo, my only grandchild and the last living link to Arthur's lineage, I began to lean heavily on the one language I knew would consistently get their attention: gifts. It started subtly. A generous contribution to Leo's elite private school tuition, which, given Clara's prestigious job, she could have comfortably afforded herself. Then, an overly generous down payment for Clara and David's first home, a sprawling, modern house in a fashionable, exclusive neighborhood that far exceeded their apparent means. Designer clothes for Clara's ever-growing wardrobe, the latest expensive gadgets for David's tech collection. Each gift, each financial handout, was initially met with effusive thanks, a momentary burst of manufactured warmth, a fleeting, precious sense of being appreciated, of truly belonging. But the warmth would always fade with startling speed, and the emotional distance would return, leaving me feeling emptier than before, always yearning for something more substantial, something genuine. I was caught in a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. I gave, they received. I felt a temporary, fleeting connection. Then they pulled away, and I, desperate and aching, gave again, foolishly hoping the next gift, the next grand gesture, would finally be enough to secure their unconditional affection. Arthur's gentle warnings about love not being a transaction seemed a distant whisper, tragically drowned out by the desperate need to feel needed, to be loved, to have a purpose in a life suddenly devoid of its central figure. The demands escalated with alarming speed and audacity. My initial attempts at generosity quickly morphed into expected financial support, then into outright entitlement. Clara and David began to treat my wealth as their own, making plans that assumed my financial backing without consultation. "Mom, we're thinking of upgrading our car, maybe a new luxury SUV. Could you help with the down payment? For Leo's safety," Clara would suggest, not ask. David would chime in with casual mentions of investment opportunities for which he needed bridge financing, always hinting that I was investing in their future, which by extension was my future. I paid for their lavish vacations, their expensive home renovations, even a significant portion of David's failing startup, which hemorrhaged money faster than I could inject it. Each time, I justified it to myself. It's for Leo. It's for family. This is how I show my love now that Arthur is gone. But the return on my emotional investment was always diminishing, leaving me with a growing sense of dread and a chilling realization that I was merely a financial resource, a living, breathing ATM, rather than a beloved mother and grandmother. Leo, my sweet grandson, remained the pure, innocent beacon in the deepening shadows of my isolation. He loved my stories, my funny voices, and my slightly too long hugs. His uninhibited laughter was the only thing that consistently brought genuine, unadulterated joy to my days. I adored him, and I wanted to give him the world, not just out of boundless love, but perhaps subconsciously, to ensure I always had an irrefutable place in his life. A role no one, not even Clara or David, could deny me. This year, for his 5th birthday, I had planned the ultimate, most elaborate gift I could conceive. A luxury, all expenses, paid trip to Disney World, complete with VIP passes, character breakfasts, and every magical experience a 5-year-old could possibly dream of. I had even gone a step further, booking a small, charming, but incredibly luxurious beach house in Florida, right on the pristine coast, as a quiet retreat for us after the theme park adventure. A tranquil place where Leo and I could build sandcastles, collect shimmering shells, and create cherished memories, just like I used to do with Arthur on our own quiet getaways. It was a $500,000 gesture, meticulously planned, hoping to buy not just Leo's boundless joy, but time with him. And perhaps, finally, a renewed appreciation, genuine inclusion, and reciprocal love from Clara and David. I had vivid visions of us all together, laughing, truly connected, finally a close family again, living out the dream Arthur and I had always shared. The Tuesday phone call, that infamous soul-crushing conversation, shattered that illusion with brutal, unyielding efficiency. "Don't come." The words were an ice pick to my heart, twisting deep. My mind reeled, trying to process the sheer audacity, the callousness. Close family. Was I suddenly not considered close? I, who had paid for their house, their son's schooling, their lavish lifestyle, their very existence in the upper echelons of society. I, who had mourned with them, celebrated with them, tried to support them in every way possible, financially and emotionally. The question echoed in the sudden deafening silence of my immaculate kitchen, reverberating through my very bones, each beat a painful reminder of my profound error. My hands, still clutching the sailboat-patterned ribbon, started to tremble uncontrollably, a physical manifestation of the emotional earthquake shaking my world. My carefully constructed composure, a shield I had honed over a lifetime in boardrooms and demanding client meetings, crumbled into dust. The immediate aftermath was a blur of searing pain, disbelief, and a crushing sense of betrayal. I hung up the phone, my hand trembling so violently I almost dropped the receiver. The meticulously wrapped sailboat gift lay mocking me on the counter, its cheerful colors now appearing garish, grotesque, a cruel symbol of my shattered hopes. The vibrant hues seemed to leach away from my world, leaving only a dull, aching emptiness. I walked through my beautiful, too large home, the silence deafening, amplified by the hollowness in my chest. Each step was heavy with the weight of years of unspoken hurt, of ignored slights, of love offered and casually dismissed, of generosity taken for granted. I finally sank onto my plush velvet sofa, the one I had personally designed with Arthur, and stared at the framed photo of him on the mantelpiece, his kind eyes smiling back at me, a poignant reminder of unconditional love. Tears, hot and bitter, streamed down my face, not just for the immediate pain of exclusion, but for all the times I had felt undervalued, dismissed, and used. They were tears of a deep, profound grief, not just for Arthur, but for the slow, agonizing death of my dignity. That night, sleep offered no escape. My mind, usually so disciplined, raced relentlessly, a cruel projector replaying Clara's cold words, David's subtle manipulations, my own desperate, humiliating attempts to buy their affection. The truth, stark and painful in its clarity, began to crystallize with terrifying precision. I had enabled their behavior. By constantly giving, by always being there with an open wallet and a forgiving heart, I had, unwittingly, tragically, taught them that my love was conditional on my generosity. I had taught them that they didn't need to earn my affection, my time, or my respect. They only needed to ask, or even just imply a need, and I, like a fool, would provide. Arthur's gentle warnings. Love isn't a transaction, echoed in my mind. No longer a gentle whisper, but a resounding, accusatory truth that reverberated through the silent house. The bitterness was almost unbearable, a metallic taste at the back of my throat. I had lost my husband, and in my overwhelming grief, I had slowly, painfully lost myself, becoming an ATM, a mere financial resource, rather than a beloved mother and grandmother. The thought was a searing indictment, a personal failure more devastating than any professional setback. But then, as dawn painted the phoenix sky with hues of fire and ethereal gold, bleeding slowly into the room, a different emotion, cold and sharp, began to stir within me, a profound, unyielding resolve. This was my life. This was my dignity. This was my money, hard-earned through decades of relentless effort, ethically acquired, built on integrity, unlike the flimsy facade David and Clara were building on my generosity. They wanted close family? Fine. I would show them what close family truly meant, and what it meant to irrevocably lose a lifeline they had so casually taken for granted. This wasn't about petty revenge or vindictive retribution. It was about self-preservation, about finally setting clear, unshakable boundaries, about reclaiming my intrinsic worth. The $500,000 beach house, the lavish Disney trip, they were not just material possessions. They were potent symbols of my desperate, misguided attempt to buy love. It was time to stop buying and start truly living, truly breathing, truly being. The time for silent suffering was over. The time for action had begun. The next morning, I didn't call Clara to plead or rage, to demand an explanation, or to express my profound hurt. I didn't send a tearful text message that would undoubtedly be met with feigned sympathy or cold indifference. Instead, at precisely 8:30 a.m., before Clara and David were likely even out of their lavish, oversized bed, I called my longtime financial advisor, Mr. Davies. He was a man I had trusted implicitly for decades, a meticulous professional who had helped me manage my considerable wealth with quiet efficiency since Arthur's passing. "Mr. Davies," I began, my voice steady, remarkably clear, betraying none of the profound turmoil that had raged within me just hours before. I projected an unwavering resolve that surprised even myself. Regarding the substantial transfer I had planned for Leo's birthday gift, the beach house in Florida, and the associated Disney trip package, I'm canceling it immediately. All funds are to remain in my personal accounts or be reinvested as you see fit. Mr. Davies, usually unflappable, a paragon of professional composure, paused. I could almost hear the gears turning in his highly analytical mind. "Mrs. Hayes," he said, his voice cautious, "are you entirely certain? This is a very significant sum, over $500,000, and the arrangements for both the property and the travel were quite extensive. Was there a sudden change of plans with the family?" "A very significant change of plans, yes, Mr. Davies," I replied, a dry, almost bitter edge to my voice. "My family seems to have recently redefined what close family means, and I apparently no longer qualify for the definition that includes me in my only grandson's birthday celebrations. Therefore, the accompanying gifts, which were intended for a family that values my presence, are no longer appropriate. Furthermore, I want to schedule an immediate review of my entire will and all my estate planning documents. I want to ensure my assets are managed and distributed according to my explicit, meticulously revised wishes, with particular attention to how they are distributed to my heirs. I want to ensure that my intentions are unequivocally clear, legally airtight, now and in the future, leaving absolutely no room for ambiguity or misinterpretation." Mr. Davies, sensing the unwavering resolve in my tone, the steely determination that had replaced my usual gentle demeanor, simply responded, "Understood, Mrs. Hayes. I'll make the necessary arrangements immediately. The cancellation will be processed by close of business today, and I'll have my team prepare the updated estate planning documents for your review. We can schedule that meeting at your earliest convenience." His voice, though professional, held a subtle note of respect, perhaps even admiration. Later that same day, armed with a renewed sense of purpose and a chilling calm, I drove to Clara's house, a house I had largely funded, an ostentatious symbol of their entitlement. I made sure to arrive after David was home, hoping to address them both directly, to deliver my message without ambiguity. They were visibly surprised to see me standing on their doorstep, a flicker of apprehension in their eyes as they tried to gauge my mood. "Mom, what's wrong? Is everything okay?" Clara asked, her usual polished composure wavering slightly, a hint of unease in her voice. "Everything is perfectly fine, Clara," I said, my voice calm, meticulously controlled, a deliberate mask to hide the depths of my long-simmering hurt, to project an unshakable, unassailable resolve. I held up the crumpled sailboat wrapping paper, a small, poignant, almost cruel symbol of my discarded hopes. "I came to tell you that I won't be coming to Leo's birthday party on Saturday, as you requested." I paused, allowing the words to sink in. And the gift I had planned for him, the one worth over $500,000, the beach house in Florida, and the accompanying Disney trip, that won't be happening either. Clara's perfectly made-up face went stark white, the color draining from her cheeks. David, who had been lounging casually on their expensive minimalist sofa, sat bolt upright, his relaxed posture evaporating, his casual smile vanishing instantly, replaced by a look of sheer disbelief, then dawning horror. "What? What are you talking about, Mom? The beach house? What beach house?" he stammered, his eyes darting frantically between me and Clara, a desperate, almost panicked edge to his voice. "The beach house I was going to purchase as a gift for Leo, to create a family retreat, a place for us to make cherished memories. The Disney trip was part of it, a meticulously planned family vacation," I explained, my voice chillingly devoid of emotion. I emphasized the words Clara had used, letting them hang in the air like a venomous accusation. A small token for my close family, I continued, a sardonic twist to my lips. But since I've been informed, rather unequivocally, that I'm not close family enough to attend my only grandson's 5th birthday party, I realized such a grand, intimate gift would be entirely inappropriate. I wouldn't want to overstep my bounds now, would I? I certainly wouldn't want to intrude on your intimate gathering. Clara was speechless, her mouth agape, her polished facade cracking, revealing the raw shock beneath. David, however, quickly found his voice, a frantic, desperate edge to it, his composure entirely shattered. Mom, you can't be serious. That's Leo's future. That's his inheritance. You can't just withdraw it. That's $500,000. His voice rose, tinged with panic. It was never an inheritance, David, I countered, my voice icy, cutting through his frantic babble. It was a gift, freely offered, out of love. A love that, apparently, was not reciprocated or even valued. And gifts, unlike legal obligations, can be rescinded when the recipient makes it abundantly clear they don't value the giver or the spirit in which the gift was intended. This isn't Leo's future. It's my money, hard-earned by my decades of work and Arthur's legacy, and I will decide how it is spent. My generosity has limits, David. Limits that have, apparently, been reached and irrevocably breached. Clara finally found her voice, a raw mix of incandescent fury and desperate fear. Mom, this is petty. This is cruel. How could you do this to your own grandson? To us? After everything we've been through? Cruel? I echoed, a short, bitter laugh escaping my lips, a sound utterly devoid of humor. Cruel was telling me, your mother, that I wasn't close family enough to celebrate my only grandson's birthday. Cruel was taking every financial help I offered, every lavish gift, every significant contribution to your increasingly extravagant lifestyle, without ever offering genuine warmth, respect, or true, unconditional inclusion in return. Cruel was using my profound grief over losing Arthur, and my desperate desire for connection as a transparent tool for your continuous financial gain. I am simply reclaiming my dignity, Clara. I am stopping the destructive cycle of trying to buy love that should be given freely, unequivocally. I'm choosing to be respected, to be valued for who I am, not exploited for what I possess. With that, I turned and walked out of their house, leaving them standing there, stunned and furious, their faces contorted in a mixture of disbelief and dawning understanding of the catastrophe they had just unleashed upon themselves. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of David's frantic gestures, his angry words undoubtedly directed at Clara, their perfect life already beginning to unravel. A tight, painful knot that had been constricting my stomach for years began, finally, to loosen. The drive home felt lighter, the bright Phoenix sun warmer, its golden rays illuminating a path towards a newfound freedom, a profound, almost dizzying sense of reclaiming my rightful place in my own life. The fallout was immediate and devastating, not just for Clara and David, but for their carefully constructed social facade. Without my constant financial infusions, my generous loans, and my invaluable connections within the high-net-worth community, David's real estate business, which had always been more illusion than substance, based largely on speculative investments and his ability to leverage my reputation, struggled mightily. He found himself facing genuine financial hardship for the first time in years. They had leveraged their assets to maintain a lifestyle far beyond their true means, confident that I, their personal ATM, would always be there to bail them out, to provide the next influx of capital. The sudden, unequivocal lack of the $500,000 gift was not just a loss of future luxury. It was a devastating, crippling blow to their already highly leveraged financial position. Their lavish parties, once a staple of the Phoenix social scene, ceased entirely. The designer clothes and expensive cars became harder to maintain, some even repossessed. I heard through the discreet whispers of the social grapevine about mounting debts, foreclosures, and escalating, increasingly public arguments that spilled from their lavish home into the street, shattering the illusion of their perfect marriage. David, accustomed to living off Clara's social connections and my bottomless generosity, found himself genuinely having to work, to compete, and his desperation quickly curdled into resentment. Their perfect, aspirational life, built on borrowed money and superficiality, began to crack under the brutal weight of financial reality. Clara, stripped of her constant source of easy money and her social status, became increasingly desperate and resentful, first towards me, then towards David, whom she now furiously blamed for not handling her mother, for their spiraling misfortunes. The thin veneer of their perfect marriage shattered, revealing the toxic codependency and mutual exploitation that lay beneath. It was a brutal, agonizing awakening for both of them. One cold, clear morning, about 6 months after the birthday incident, my phone rang. It was Clara. My finger hovered over the decline button, a part of me wanting to maintain the newfound peace and distance. But something, a flicker of hope, a maternal instinct perhaps, made me answer. "Mom," she began, her voice hesitant, shaky, utterly devoid of her usual confident, almost arrogant tone. I need to talk to you. Can you meet me for coffee? Please?" I agreed cautiously, guarding my heart. We met at a small, unassuming independent cafe in a quiet part of town, far from her usual glamorous haunts. She looked tired, genuinely tired, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion, her once impeccable designer clothes, less pristine, almost worn. "Mom," she started, twisting a napkin nervously in her hands, her gaze fixed on the table. "David and we're having problems. Serious problems. His business? It's completely failed, we're drowning in debt, and he blames you. He blames me. He's not the man I thought he was. He never was." I listened, silently, allowing her to speak, my heart aching with a complex mix of sadness and a quiet, grim satisfaction, but my resolve remained firm. "And what about you, Clara?" I finally asked, my voice calm, steady, waiting for the real truth. "Do you blame me?" She took a deep, shuddering breath, her shoulders slumping. And then, for the first time in a very long time, I saw a flicker of the honest, vulnerable girl she used to be, the child I remembered. "At first, yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I was furious. I hated you. I blamed you for everything. But after everything collapsed, after seeing how David truly changed, how he only cared about the money and not me, not us, I started to think, really think. I started to remember all the times you helped us, all the gifts, all the times I just took them, and how I treated you, especially that day, Leo's birthday. Mom, what I said, it was cruel. It was unforgivable. I didn't mean it, or maybe I did, because I was so used to taking you for granted, so used to you just being there. I am so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry I hurt you. So sorry I made you feel invisible." Tears welled in her eyes. Genuine tears, not the performative kind she usually employed. And in that moment, something shifted profoundly within me. The impenetrable wall I had painstakingly built around my heart, brick by painful brick, began, slowly, to soften, to crack. "It's not just the words, Clara," I said, my voice gentle but clear, unwavering. "It's the pattern, the feeling that I was only valuable to you for what I could provide, that my love, my presence, wasn't enough on its own, that you never truly valued me." "I know," she whispered, tears streaming down her face, her voice choked with raw emotion. "And I'm so sorry. I miss you, Mom. I miss you being my mom, not just my ATM. I miss Leo having his grandmother. He asks about you all the time. He talks about you drawing him pictures, about the sailing stories you told him." Clara and David eventually separated. A messy, bitter divorce that dragged on for months. A stark, painful reflection of the flimsy, transactional foundation their relationship had been built upon. David, stripped of his easy life and his grand illusions, descended into further financial troubles, eventually moving out of state, disappearing from our lives as abruptly as he had entered them. Clara, humbled, scarred, and profoundly changed by the brutal realities she had faced, began to truly rebuild her life, not on superficiality or borrowed wealth, but on something more genuine, more authentic. She started therapy, something I had quietly, gently suggested years ago, always met with her dismissive scoff. She meticulously reevaluated her priorities, focusing on her career for intrinsic satisfaction rather than just financial gain, and, most importantly, on her relationship with Leo and, tentatively, with me. Our reconciliation was slow, cautious, and deeply, painfully honest. There were no more lavish gifts from me, no more financial expectations from her. Instead, we spent time together. Simple, quiet dinners at my house, long, meandering walks in the park with Leo, honest conversations over coffee where she revealed her struggles, her insights, her fears. I listened to her, truly listened, offered support and advice when asked, but never, ever financial aid. She, in turn, began to truly see me, not as a resource, but as her mother, a woman who had her own feelings, her own life, her own dignity, her own boundaries. It was a learning process for both of us, a careful dance of rebuilding trust and redefining our relationship on healthy terms. Leo, my sweet grandson, was the natural, joyful bridge between us, his innocent, boundless love helping to mend the cracks. He never questioned my earlier absence, only celebrated my joyful return, embracing me with the same fierce love he always had. He still loved our stories, our hugs, our shared passion for sailboats. We eventually took that magical Disney trip, just Leo and I, creating new, unburdened memories, laughing until our sides hurt, feeling the pure, unadulterated joy that can only come from true connection. And then, we went to that small, charming, luxurious beach house in Florida, just as I had originally planned. It was no longer a gift meant to buy love, but a place to simply be together. A sanctuary built on genuine connection, on shared laughter and quiet moments of profound peace. My life now, at 62, is full, rich, and deeply peaceful. I continue my interior design consulting, but entirely on my own terms, choosing only projects that genuinely inspire me, working with clients who value my talent and my time. I've reconnected with old friends I had neglected during my years of frantic giving, found new hobbies that nourish my soul, and embraced a vibrant, independent existence. I've even joined a women's philanthropy group, directing my generosity towards causes that truly align with my values, helping those who genuinely need it, not those who merely exploit it. My wealth, once a source of both my power and my vulnerability, is now a tool for genuine good, for authentic connection, a legacy that Arthur would truly be proud of. Clara and I are not perfect, and our relationship is a work in progress, but we are healing. Our bond is no longer defined by what I can give, but by mutual respect, honest communication, and genuine affection. She still has struggles, as all adults do, but she faces them with newfound resilience, no longer expecting me to solve them for her. She's becoming the woman Arthur and I always hoped she would be: independent, empathetic, and truly grounded. And Leo? He still visits every Saturday, his joyous laughter echoing through my sun-drenched home, a sound sweeter than any material possession, a melody of pure, unconditional love. He recently drew me a picture at school. It was of the three of us, Clara, Leo, and me, standing in front of a house with a big, smiling sun overhead and brightly colored flowers in the yard. At the bottom, in his careful 7-year-old handwriting, he'd written, "My family. Not part of my family, or visiting family, just my family." That's all I'd ever truly wanted. To belong, to matter, to be loved, not for what I could provide, but for who I was, completely, unconditionally. And at 62, I finally have that. And it was worth every painful step, every tear, every hard-won boundary it took to get here. This profound journey taught me more about myself, about love, and about the true nature of family than all my years of experience combined. It taught me that sometimes the ones closest to you can inflict the deepest wounds, not always with malice, but with a casual disregard born of unchecked entitlement and a learned expectation of endless provision. It taught me that love, even parental love, cannot truly thrive, cannot genuinely exist in an environment of constant disrespect and exploitation. It taught me that true strength isn't about shouting louder or fighting harder, or even giving more, but about knowing when to draw a firm, unyielding line, to say no more, and to fiercely reclaim your own worth, your own dignity, your own peace. Arthur's gentle wisdom, his quiet insistence that love isn't a transaction, resonated deeply throughout this ordeal, finally becoming a guiding principle rather than a forgotten whisper from the past. His spirit lives on, not just in the memories we shared, but in the renewed strength of my voice, in the cautious but hopeful healing of my family, and in the profound, unwavering peace I now feel. This peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but the profound, all-encompassing presence of integrity, of love given and received freely, genuinely, without transaction or expectation. My home is now truly my sanctuary again, filled with genuine warmth, unburdened laughter, and honest, heartfelt conversation. Clara is slowly, steadily rebuilding her life, learning the true meaning of responsibility and contribution, step by painful step. She's becoming the woman Arthur and I always hoped she would be: independent, empathetic, and truly grounded. We still have a long way to go, and the scars of the past remain, but the path forward is now clear, built on a foundation of honesty, mutual respect, and a newfound understanding of what true family really means. I know Arthur, wherever he is, would be profoundly proud. Have you ever had to draw a difficult line with family members who were taking advantage of you, or who simply didn't see your worth beyond what you could provide? How did you find your voice, set your boundaries, and reclaim your life and your dignity? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, if it helped you recognize your own worth and the power of saying enough is enough, please hit that like button. Subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming adversity and finding your strength, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being and self-respect. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, your dignity is never for sale. True family supports your growth rather than exploits your goodness.